Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and I'm so excited for today's video because I don't think in the past I've read enough books in one given year to have enough 5-star books to do a video like today's video. So I'm just like super excited. I think I got this video from, I want to say it was Carrie's Reading. She did like a tiered book videos where it's like she decides on which ones are her S-tiered books basically. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this one's going to be a little bit different. This is more like true elimination bracket, but I thought it would be super fun to make an elimination bracket where we figure out which book is my number one 5-star book of the year. So we're going to go through all of our 5-star books. I read 73 books total this year, and out of those 73, I believe 25 of them, let me triple check. Yeah, 25 of them were 5-star books. So that's huge. That's a lot of books. And today we're going to find out which ones are 5 stars. I'm not going to go through every single book in terms of like what each one is about. If you guys are ever interested, I have a whole reading playlist on my YouTube channel, and all of my reading wrap-ups are also in those, and I talk about what the book is about in every single one of my reading wrap-ups, so you guys can always check that out. I also have my Goodreads always linked below, so if you guys are interested in that, feel free to check that out as well. Otherwise, my goal today is to go through each of the books and talk about like the components that made it a 5-star book and decide if it wins against another book basically. So again, not going into each book in terms of like the synopsis of each book, but more so like just enough for it to make sense on whether or not it should win against another book. So really there's no big rules, just we're gonna do single elimination. I have this bracket that I'll share with you guys. So I'm gonna do a screen share for this video as well so that you guys can, obviously like watch alongside me. This is the bracket system that we're gonna be using. I have 25 books here that we'll go through. And again, we're gonna just do single elimination. I just felt like a loser's bracket was like just too much. And we're gonna find out which one was my ultimate 5-star. Before we get into it though, if you guys are not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps out my channel, and I really would love to grow my channel and my community in 2025. And like I said before, I have all of my like Goodreads, my Instagram, anything else in the section below, in that little box below. So if you guys ever want to follow me on other platforms, you can. Otherwise, let's just get right into the bracket. I'm very excited for this because I see already that the first set of my brackets are Good Girls Guide to Murder and The Naturals, and I'm like unsure of which one I want to choose here. I think I really loved The Naturals a lot. I think the series was really good. There was a few things that kind of like, I don't want to say like made it cringy, but I don't know, it was just certain things about the book I just like didn't love. And also I feel like I wish there was more romance in that series as well, because there was like the tiniest bit of romance and then it just like disappeared out of nowhere. Good Girls Guide to Murder, every single one of the books except for the novella, but all of the books in the series were a 5-star, so I think I have to give this one to Good Girls Guide to Murder. The next one is Queen of Shadows versus Powerless, and this one is funny because I gave Queen of Shadows a 5 stars, but I don't think I could tell you now what Queen of Shadows was about. I remember in the moment just like really loving that book and like really thinking that it did a lot for the series, but I think towards the end of the series, like there's only like 2 books out of the whole 8 that I could like remember exactly what happened in those books, and all of the rest, because of the last book, I have like a bad taste in my mouth of the series, which sucks because the series is actually very good. Powerless, on the other hand, I read when I was in Washington and I was visiting my family, and I remember my mom even commenting like, you have your nose in that book, like we're doing things, we need to get up and go do something, but I like could not put it down. I was living for Powerless, so I think I have to give this one to Powerless. It's so hard pinning your 5 stars against each other. Green Mile was also one of the first books of the year for me, and Yours Truly I read probably like just after summertime. I think Yours Truly was so cute and I really loved it, and I think that it was probably one of my favorite ones out of that entire like 3-book series. The interconnected stories were so great, and Yours Truly in particular I think was my favorite one. But the Green Mile, I almost gave up on it. This one has been on my shelf for so long. I'm not kidding. Like probably like anywhere between like 6 and 10 years, the Green Mile had been on my shelf, and I finally read it and I almost gave up on it because we talk about Delacroix's mouse for so long, but it was so important to the book, and so I'm so glad that I continued it. The movie was fantastic. Like The Green Mile is one of those books that you just don't forget the details about it and holds up, because that was not published recently. That was published I think in the 90s, and it just everything about it holds up. So I think I have to give give this one to The Green Mile. It's just like, I'll never forget the details of that, and I will recommend it to anyone who likes books similar to it. Okay, Assassin's Blade and Crown of Midnight. This one is pretty easy because I already know that I loved Assassin's Blade and just like the whole backstory, so I have to give it to Assassin's Blade. Crown of Midnight was good, but kind of the same as Queen of Shadows. Like, I can't remember what happened in Crown of Midnight, except I'm pretty sure this is the book where a huge set of our main characters are introduced. So I think that's true, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think I have to give it to Assassin's Blade. This one's also going to be tough because Throne of Glass and Dark Matter, Throne of Glass in particular, was one of the ones that I really loved and remember in the entirety of the series, but Dark Matter is like so different. Like the sci-fi, the like thought process in order to create this type of book, and just like everything about it I think was so cool. This one also had a TV show that was made after, and I just happened to read it like right before the TV show was about to be released, and so I got really lucky that I got to watch it pretty much right away. So I think I have to give this one to Dark Matter. Like, it was truly so good. I didn't realize I don't have to like add a point, so I'm just going to stop adding points. So we're just going to not pay attention to these points here and just look at the green check marks, I guess. Funny Story and Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, also such different books. Funny Story, I think, is like, Emily Henry is pretty much always going to be a 5-star for me. I love every single one of her books. I love every single one of her characters. I think the only one that I didn't really like fall in love with was Book Lovers, but all of her other books have been total hits for me, and I pre-order every single one of her books. I loved Funny Story. The only thing that I'll say about it is that while like the nuances of each of her books are very different, I think that it's a little bit more predictable because they're all romance novels and they all end up together, and you know, the whole thing. Whereas Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into with this one, and so I think that this one was a little bit different for me. Ryan's mom let me borrow this one, and the story is just like, I don't know, I like, this is not the type that like Green Mile I will remember every detail, but this is one where it's like more of a character study about this kid who we follow in his childhood and in his adulthood, and just like the powerfulness of his life and everything he does with it. Just, it's a bigger book than Funny Story, unfortunately. So I think I have to give it to Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. I really wanted Emily Henry to win something or like go further than this, but when you're pinned against a book that like has so much depth and meaning, it's really hard to win as a romance novel. So Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. Okay, now Powerful, the novella to the Powerless trilogy, and First Lie wins. I really liked First Lie wins, but I think I have to give this one to Powerful, mostly because they're both like pretty good books. I liked them a lot. I don't think I've ever given a novella a 5 stars, and this one was so important to, I know what the trilogy will end up being, and like gave so much backstory, and on top of it, I think it was like kind of cool that it was released just before the second book in the trilogy, so we got to like enter back into the world, and I don't know, like, that was just like, it was such a cute, perfect, not even cute, there are so many details that I think I needed for the trilogy, and I got them from this novel, so I think that one has to win. First Lie Wins, I think, was such a good book, and I think it had a lot of really cool features to it, but I just don't think it can compare. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's my choice. Okay, Rabbit Hole and Just for the Summer. This one is really hard, actually. Rabbit Hole, I loved. And Just for the Summer, oh, man, this is really hard, actually. Just for the Summer is hard because it's another romance novel. So it's like, I feel like romance novels are really hard for me to have win in something like this, only because it's not my preferred, it's not like my top genre, if that makes sense. Like, I really love romance novels, but I have to be in the mood for them. Like, I can't just like pick up a romance novel willy-nilly. Like, I have to be ready to read it. And so, yeah, I just like don't know if a romance novel will ever make it past the first or second round of this. But Rabbit Hole, so my friend's sister-in-law wrote this book, and I was very excited to read it, but I was trying to keep my expectations low because it is her debut novel, and I ended up really loving it. I think that it kind of got miscategorized as like a mystery thriller, but it's more so about someone like going down a rabbit hole about someone in their family who went missing, and I just really liked it. I felt like the name Rabbit Hole made so much sense for this book, and I feel like it was like, I don't know. I think that like if you didn't go into it expecting it to be a mystery thriller, it was exactly what I was looking for and what I was expecting it to be. So I think I have to give it to that one. Okay. And then The Women and 28 Summers. 28 Summers was really good. I really, really liked it. I don't think that I don't think many books can compare to Kristen Hanna's books, let alone The Women. The Women was so good, and it's hard because I'm a little bit biased because I read it more recently, but essentially 28 Summers was more about this couple that kept reuniting every, was it Labor Day or 4th of July weekend? It was something, I think it was Labor Day. I'm like almost positive, and they did that for 28 Summers. And so it was like all of their life in between, and then their life whenever they would meet up, and they never missed a summer. And I think the book was so good, but it wasn't like the type of book that I like could not put down. Does that make sense? And The Women actually had kind of a similar feeling of like it being a slightly like bigger message or like more of a character study, I guess is really what I'm getting at. But The Women was so much heavier, and it had different types of topics where it's not just following this like one couple during their affair, but more so this woman who experiences war and is a nurse and is like trying to do her best in life, but like is constantly feeling like she's failing and just so much. And I just don't think that that one can't win. That book made me so emotional. I was crying on the 3rd page. I was crying on the last page. Like it was so good. So yeah, The Women for sure. Ooh, okay. We're going through our first round already. So let's get to the second round, which is The Wedding People and Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And this is such a hard pick because my gosh, they're both just so good. This is just going to get harder and harder. So The Wedding People, I loved, and I loved the topics of it. I liked the author and the way that she wrote her books. I just so much about it I loved. And Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I also loved. I think that it's hard because Good Girl's Guide to Murder is YA. Both of these books I would recommend to people, but for very different reasons. And for like people who like certain different genres, I would recommend one or the other. You know what I mean? So like this is so tough, but it's hard because I loved every single book in Good Girl's Guide to Murder too. So like, what do you do with that kind of information? I was obsessed with Good Girl's Guide to Murder when I was reading it. So I kind of feel like I have to give it to that one. Like I really, really, really liked Wedding People a lot, but I was like obsessed. So I have to give it to Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Okay. And now Powerless and Green Mile. This is funny because I actually read these two back to back. So I read Green Mile was my first book of the year, and then I finished it on the plane to Washington, and I started Powerless on the plane. So between Powerless and Green Mile, like these give me the same feeling because I was like literally in the same spot when I was reading both of these books. And I think Powerless is such a good book, and I'm excited for like the rest of the trilogy, but I think Green Mile was like too important of a book to not give it to that one. And like, again, so meaningful, so powerful, just so much about it was so great. So I think the Green Mile. Ooh, this one's tough. That I read a lot of Stephen King this year. Cujo and Assassin's Blade. Okay, so Cujo I really enjoyed. Assassin's Blade, I obviously enjoyed both of these books. I gave them 5 stars, but it's hard when you pin two books that are so different together. So Cujo, I think, was really, really good. I think that, something's telling me Assassin's Blade, and I really don't know why that is. Here's why. I think that Assassin's Blade, like, gave me answers to questions that I had about the series that I wasn't aware of yet. And so it helped me conceptualize more of like what's going on with my character. Whereas Cujo, so much happened, and I loved like the way that Stephen King ended this book, and it was like not at all what I was expecting. Oh my god, I don't know how to decide between these. Something is telling me in my gut to say Assassin's Blade, and I feel like that's kind of crazy, but I think I have to do it. Okay, Dark Matter and Good Girl Bad Blood. I loved Good Girl Bad Blood, but I have to give this one to Dark Matter. It's just such a cool, interesting concept, and I don't think that Good Girl Bad Blood, I don't think that one could win, honestly, sadly. Now I kind of have the same idea with As Good as Dead and Extraordinary Life of Sam Hill. Like, this is basically the same thing as Dark Matter and Good Girl Bad Blood. Extraordinary Life of Sam Hill is kind of, for me, a no-brainer. It's so sad because I loved Good Girl's Guide to Murder and that whole series and was like literally obsessed with it, but now only the first one is winning, and the other two have already been eliminated. So I read some good books this year, guys. Okay, Powerful and Lessons in Chemistry. Oh my God. Okay, Lessons in Chemistry I read as an audiobook, and I think that was the move. I'm already checking it. I already know that I'm going to check it. I was wanting to read this book for so long, and finally one of my coworkers was like, I read this book and it's so smart, and I thought of you when I was reading it, and I need you to read it. And I was like, okay, fine. This is finally the push that's going to get me to read it. And it was so good. I was obsessed with it. I also read this while I took like a week off in the middle of the summer, like just because I wanted to take time off from work. And I think it was like the perfect book for me to read. It was so much about like women in science, and like this woman who's basically like trying to not decide between even, but like she's essentially living as someone in the world who like people don't take seriously. She also becomes a mother, and she like has this relationship with this dog. Like there's just so many pieces to this book that were so brilliant, and I was obsessed. I don't know if it's because I read it as an audiobook or what, but I was obsessed with it. And I think Powerful was so powerful for the series that I'm reading, but I don't think that it can compare to Lessons in Chemistry. Like it's just such a different type of, like I feel like I tend to really like books that are powerful and are like have a bigger meaning and like make me think more about like the life that I'm living, or like the type of world that I live in, or the things that I'm doing, or history, or whatever it may be. And Lessons in Chemistry was one of those. So I'm seeing a trend here of like all of the books that are winning are the books that make me think that way, which makes sense because I love those types of books. Tower of Dawn and Rabbit Hole. It's so funny because I feel like I've heard such bad things about Tower of Dawn, but I think it was like single-handedly one of the best books in the entire series. Rabbit Hole was still a fantastic book, but I loved Tower of Dawn, like loved it. And I think that Tower of Dawn was like the one redeeming quality in the entire end of the series for this whole Throne of Glass series. So Tower of Dawn, that one was fantastic. I don't know why so many people don't like it, and why so many people don't like Kale. I'm sorry. Like he is not the best character, but like we are also all human, and I think he's just so misunderstood sometimes. I don't know. I love him, and I love that book. Okay, and then lastly on this round we have The Women against God of the Woods, and God of the Woods was so interesting because it was almost like literary fiction, but also like a mystery with like a tiny bit of like thriller in there. So it was like so many different genres like packed into one, and I really liked the way that it was written. I just knew that I was gonna like this one. I don't know what it was about it, but I knew I was gonna like it, and so I bought this one as a hard copy from the jump. I didn't want to read this one on my Kindle. I wanted to read this one as like a real physical book and like own the book, and I loved it. So that was interesting, but same kind of ideas before. I don't think that The Women, it was just too powerful. I just loved it so much. And also I think that one where's my phone? I think The Women won, I have to find it, but I'm pretty sure The Women won some sort of award as well. Checks out why I liked it so much. Okay, we're on the final stretch here. We are on round 3, and there's going to be, well, not really 6. There's going to be 5 total rounds, so we're almost finished, but my camera is dying. So let me go swap out my camera, and then we will continue where we left off. All right, we're back. I have a feeling that this is going to get very hard from here on out. So we are on The Green Mile versus Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and this is hard. The Green Mile is just, it was so powerful for me. I don't know why that is, but it's interesting because so many of the books that I read from Stephen King this year, well, actually in general, I should say, are not actually like thrillers or anything like that. So I do want to start reading more of his thrillers, but The Green Mile, I thought for some reason was going to be a thriller, and it just wasn't. Good Girl's Guide to Murder, like I was saying earlier, is a YA novel, and so I really liked it a lot, but I don't think it can compare to the feelings that I got from The Green Mile, so I think I'm gonna have to give this one to The Green Mile. Next is Assassin's Blade and Dark Matter. Dark Matter was just so smart. Assassin's Blade was so good, but Dark Matter was really smart, so I have to give this one to Dark Matter. Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell and Lessons in Chemistry. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is where it gets really hard. These are like the same types of books where like it's a fake person, but they're going through something very real, and it makes you very like introspective and just again thinking about your own life. So when 2 of these books are pinned together, It's very hard to decide which one I think should win. I think Lessons in Chemistry made me cry multiple times. Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell, I think so many times I stopped reading and like wanted to tell Ryan about what I was reading and what was happening and all about my character and the whole thing. And both of them, like, they feel like real people, you know? So like it's hard because how are you supposed to compare? It's like comparing your favorite children. I'm trying to think of like other points as to like what maybe would set off. Like Lessons in Chemistry being specifically about a woman, I think I feel a little bit more connected, especially a woman who has a career and is trying to juggle everything in her life, like her career, her child, the whole thing. And Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell is like someone who was dealt a bad card and now has to live with it because that's just like the way he looks and the way that people judge him and like how life just isn't fair at all. Like that's just like how it is. The one thing about Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell that I really loved is that as someone who doesn't experience that type of thing as much as other people in my life, I think that it helped me internalize and understand how people go through life who have to experience that type of thing. Whereas Lessons in Chemistry more solidified the things that I already feel as a woman, and obviously not nearly as much as like what this person was feeling because she, or like the book, isn't set in the 60s. But I think I liked that Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell put me in someone else's shoes and allowed me to like understand what they're going through. So I think I'm gonna have to give it to that one. But like truly this one's a toss-up. I think this whole row, like if I have, yeah, like this entire row is going to be my favorites, I think. Like these are my favorites of the year. Okay, Tower of Dawn versus The Woman. This one, I love Tower of Dawn, but The Woman has to win. Like there's just, it's a no-brainer for me. It's just, that's still a different enough genre where Tower of Dawn was so good, but The Woman was just too powerful. It's just so good. You guys, if you haven't read it yet, you have to read it. It's amazing. Now here's where it gets very difficult. It's between The Green Mile and Dark Matter. God, okay, I think that I have a soft spot for one of the main characters in The Green Mile, and I'm like obsessed with him. Even though the beginning was a little bit slow in the book, I love him. I just don't know how else to say it. I'm obsessed with him. Dark Matter, I really liked, and I think it was really smart and really good, and it made me think a lot. But I love him. So I think Green Mile. Yeah. Also, Dark Matter, the show, was a little bit different than the book, but both of them were fantastic. So, okay. Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell and The Woman. Man, that's rough. I think The Woman still has to win. I love Sam Hell, but yeah, I like Frankie. I don't know how else. If you guys haven't read either of these books, you're like, okay, that's not an explanation, but I'm now like looking at these titles and thinking about like the people and like thinking about who it is that I felt more tied to and who it is that I cared more for. And like, I think that speaks to the writing in each of these books too, because if these writers can make me feel like these people are real and like they're my friends, then like you're a pretty good author. So I think I have to give this one to The Women. Just, it was such a powerful book. Whew. Okay, the ultimate showdown. Green Mile versus The Women, which is pretty crazy because that's like one of my first books of the year and then one of my last books of the year. And I don't know how I'm supposed to choose between these. I'm really trying hard to think about this because like truly these are probably some of my best or most favorite books of like my life. Like these books are so good. I think something about The Green Mile took a piece of my heart. I don't know how else to explain that. Like it truly, like it made me sob on an airplane. I couldn't stop talking to Ryan about it. The movie took everything from me. Like it was a whole thing. The Women, I felt kind of the same. Like I was crying during that book. I was also talking to Ryan about it constantly. I was learning so much too about Vietnam War and like it helped me question things. And so then like look things up and then like do research on my own. So I think that was really cool, but there was something so powerful and like weirdly like mystical, but also like so empowering and like just so many things about The Green Mile, like different aspects of the book that I think I have to give it to that one. That one like was really, really, really powerful. And the ending was crazy too. Like I think that's maybe part of it is that like the ending of each of the books are so drastically different that The Green Mile is more like that's how life works. So I think that's the one I'm gonna have to give it to. So officially, The Green Mile is my favorite book of the year, which is so crazy to think about because that was my first book of the year. Who knew that it was going to be that way? I truly loved every single one of these books on this list though. And if you guys have not read any of these books, in particular, that like last or whatever, that like that column of like a mix, I think, of like Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but also like Dark Matter and Green Mile and Lessons in Chemistry. Like all of these were such good books. And I think that like they're so popular for a reason and have gotten good reviews for so long, for so many reasons. So I'm like excited that I got to read all of these this year. I feel like this year was just like a year where I just got to read so many good books and so many books that I've been like meaning to read and putting off for whatever reason. And I feel like I had such a good reading year. So I'm excited that the Green Mile won, and the women being in second place is, I mean, this whole like second half of the bracket, I think all of these 25 books are amazing, but those ones in particular are like, if someone asked me like what's my ultimate favorite book, I would have to list off like these, 6 or whatever, because they're all just so good and hard to choose from. But yeah, that was really great. That was really fun. So thank you guys for watching and choosing along with me. I'm curious to know what your guys' favorite book of the entire year was. So if you guys know what your favorite book was, leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear it. And maybe I will add one of your guys' favorite books to my 2025 reading list if I have not read it already. I would love to explore more books that you guys love too. So thank you guys again for watching and being here with me this whole year. It was a really fun year, and I'm really glad that we got to, explore books together and vlog together, just spend weekends together, the whole thing. It was so much fun, and we have some more fun content coming up for the rest of 2024 too, and obviously into 2025. So thank you again. I appreciate you guys so much. You have no idea. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.